evening. Calling this meeting of the Township of Howell's Planning Board, January 18th, 2024, to order. Eileen, opening statement, please.
I hereby declare this meeting of the Howell Township Planning Board to be open, adequate notice having been given pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act in the following manner. First, on January 5th, 2024, a copy of said notice was emailed to the Asbury Park Press and the Star-Ledger. Second, on January 5th, 2024, a copy of said notice was hand-delivered to the clerk of the Township of Howell. Third, on January 5th, 2024, said notice was posted in the office of the Planning Board and on the bulletin board in the Howell Township Municipal Building, 4567 Route 9, Howell Township, New Jersey. In accordance with the Fire Prevention Code and your safety, please be advised that this facility is designed with 2 emergency exits, which are at the front and rear of the meeting room. Furthermore, smoking is not permitted in the municipal building. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcast on Howell Township TV 77.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Cristiano?
Present.
Mr. Greenfield's been excused. Mr. Leggio?
Here.
Mr. Mercer, I have not heard from. Mr. Tannenhouse is going to be late. Mr. Rebel?
Here.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Here.
Ms. Pike?
Here.
Mr. Karbonic?
Here.
And Chairman Bavai is excused. Chairman Husser,
Here.
you have a quorum.
Thank you. Would everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and take a moment of silence for those men and women serving here and abroad.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I feel like I'm sitting on the floor here.
Switch chairs with Brian.
There we go. All right. Okay, approval of minutes for the regular meeting of November 2nd, 2023. Eligible voters, Cristiano, myself, Leggio, Pike, and that's it. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make motion for approval of minutes. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Cristiano?
Yes.
Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
Ms. Pike?
Yes.
And Chairman Husser.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Do we have any vouchers?
No vouchers.
Any correspondence?
I do have correspondence. I have an email from Vince Halloran. He asked if the board would adjourn the hearing scheduled for this evening for the Augustine Kim case SD 3009 to the next available hearing date without further notice being required. And his expert witness was not available, but he is not available on February 1st, so he asked for February 15th. And he also granted an extension of time through April 15th, 2024.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'll just read the announcement then. Application SD-3009 of Augustine Kim be carried to the board's February 15th meeting. It's a live meeting beginning 7 o'clock here in the main meeting room at Town Hall. There'll be no further notice to property owners.
I also have a letter from Michael Butler. He's the attorney for case number SP1115, I believe it is. Give me 1 second. That's J-A-B-E Howell, which is also on tonight's agenda, and it is case SP1115. He asked that this application be carried to the planning board meeting for February 15th without further notice, and granted the board an extension through and including February 16th, 2024.
Okay, so the application, of JB Hal LLC, application 1115, be carried to the board's February 15th, 2024 meeting, beginning 7 o'clock. It's a live meeting here in the main meeting room at Town Hall. No further notice to property owners.
And the last item was a land use ordinance I sent earlier this week. It was introduced by the council on January 16th and it's scheduled for public hearing and adoption on February 6th, and it changes the zoning of certain properties within the SED1 zone and other properties to the ARE6 zone. I don't know if anybody's had a chance, but we have to, I guess, discuss it and decide whether it's substantially consistent with the master plan.
Yeah, so those board members that may be new, the municipal land use law requires when a land use ordinance is introduced at the governing body, it's required to then be referred to the planning board for determination as to whether it is substantially consistent with the master plan. Then it goes back up for a public hearing and second reading before the governing body. So we're here just to determine consistency with the master plan.
Right, and so a recommendation from the most recent sorry. Recommendation from the most recent re-exam was to examine this area for rezoning. So this is rezoning that area to ARE6, which was just based on input from residents and the council.
So it's your opinion, based upon what is in our most recent master plan, that this ordinance is substantially consistent?
That is correct.
You can ask that.
Mr. Gutierrez, what piece of property? What road?
I turn it over to the planner.
Is it a certain piece of property, or is it just in general?
It's a bunch of properties.
all
When they're
Victory
has
Road.
by
the
block and
ordinance.
lot, it doesn't
Yeah.
say.
Oh, okay.
It's like a couple dozen.
It doesn't really say what address, it just gives me block and lot. But it's to provide an expansion of commercial zoning.
It's on Victory Road.
Victory Road, yeah, that's what it is. Several parcels on Victory Road to ARE6.
And does it include the parcel that we've been listening to?
I believe it does.
Although they're vested
Right.
in the...
That's vested, right?
Yeah.
So, okay.
All right.
All right, I'll entertain a motion that it's substantially consistent with our master plan.
I will make motion that it is
Substantially consistent.
consistent with our master plan. Right.
Second.
There you go.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Cristiano?
Yes.
Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
Mr. Rebel?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Pike?
Yes.
Mr. Carbonic? And Chairman Husser.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you, and that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. On to resolutions. First one is the resolution appointing Mr. Cucchiaro of Wiener Law Group as our planning board attorney. Eligible voters, Cristiano, myself, Rubble, Fisher, Pike, Carbonic. Can I get a motion, please?
I'll make motion for approval.
I'll second.
Okay, seconds, Mrs. Pike.
Thank you. Mr. Cristiano?
Yes.
Mr. Rebel?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Pike?
Yes.
Mr. Carbonic?
Yes.
And Chairman Husser.
Yes.
Motion carries. Resolutions memorialized.
Next is resolution appointing Laura Newman of CME Associates as our planning board engineer. Eligible voters, Cristiano, myself, Rubble, Fisher, Pike, and Carbonic. Do I have a motion?
I'll make motion for approval.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Mr. Cristiano?
Yes.
Mr. Rebel?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Pike?
Yes.
Mr. Carbonic?
Yes.
And Chairman Husser.
Yes.
Motion carries. Resolutions memorialized.
Okay, the next is a resolution appointing Jen Beam of Leon S. Avakian as our planning board planner. Eligible voters, Cristiano, myself, Rubble, Fisher, Pike, and Carbonic.
I'll make motion for approval.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Cristiano?
Yes.
Mr. Rebel?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Pike?
Yes.
Mr. Carbonic?
Yes.
And Chairman Husser.
Yes.
Motion carries. Resolutions memorialized.
Okay, next is a resolution appointing Sherry Sparrow of CME Associates as the planning board licensed tree expert. Eligible voters, Cristiano, myself, Rebel, Fisher, Pike, and Carbonic.
I'll make motion for approval.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Cristiano?
Yes.
Mr. Rebel?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Pike?
Yes.
Mr. Carbonic?
Yes.
And Chairman Husser?
Yes.
Motion carries. Resolution's memorialized.
Okay, the next is the resolution granting minor subdivision with ancillary variance and design waiver relief for case number SD 3012, 391 Oak Glen LLC. Eligible voters, Cristiano, myself, and Pike. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Cristiano?
Yes.
Ms. Pike?
Yes.
And Chairman Husser?
Yes.
Motion carries. Resolution's memorialized.
Okay, the last is resolution granting submission waivers for case number SP 1117, DR Horton Incorporated, also known as Howell Ridge. Eligible voters, Cristiano, myself, Leggio, Pike, and that is it. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Mr. Leggio?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Cristiano?
Yes.
Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
Ms. Pike?
Yes.
And Chairman Husser?
Yes.
Motion carries. Resolution's memorialized. Thank
right.
you.
Thank you. No submission waivers, correct?
No submission waivers.
On to applications. All right. First is case number SP 1111, Comets, Inc., for preliminary and final major site plan with ancillary variance and design waiver relief.
Good evening, Salvatore Alfieri on behalf of the applicant.
Good evening.
Before we begin, I need to make sure we have enough members to act on the application. We were here in December, and in looking at the agenda, I only see 3 of the people listed. Anyone listen to the tape?
Mr. Leggio, Mr. Rebel, and Mr. Carbonic are all
perfect.
certified. How's
Perfect,
that?
thank you. So we're ready to go.
All right.
For those, obviously, for those board members who were here or who listened to the tape, we did get started at the last meeting. Mr. Plaskanka provided testimony, and we got hung up on the status of the trees that are on the border of the property that is adjacent to what we perceive to be a residential use. We have submitted a revised plan, and I believe we've now addressed the concerns of Shari and Jennifer. We'll hear from them, I'm sure, at some point. But we also realize that the property that is residential adjacent to us is a boarded-up, abandoned home. It's in a commercial zone, so we're not sure if it really is residential, but I think we've addressed everything to the satisfaction of the professionals, so that's really not relevant. Mr. Plaskanka is away, so we have Mr. Hilary from his office here who will provide testimony, so after he's sworn in, we will have to qualify him.
Okay, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state and spell your name for the record.
Sure. Name is Bhaskar Halari, that's Halari. I work with Concept Engineering since 1989. I obtained my professional engineer license in 1994, and since then I have presented in front of numerous planning and zoning board in Middlesex and Monmouth County.
Okay, we'll accept your credentials.
Thank you very much.
And then, and just as a reminder, we are on State Highway, Route 33. We have an NJDOT access permit already, which he had submitted previously in support of our application. And we also, Mr. Plaskanka testified previously that we would agree as a condition of approval to address all of the technical comments contained within the board professional reports. We have received an updated report from Laura, and we're okay with all of her comments as well. So I'm going to have Mr. Hilary, would you first describe for the board what plan revisions were made since our last testimony?
I think when John mentioned that after previous meeting, the key issue that was left to be resolved was visiting a site with Sherry Spiro to look at the existing wooded area that is along front of the property as well as on an easterly property line to see what existing wooded area that is worth preserving and identify those areas. John met with her subsequently. I think we have another exhibit. There's a new exhibit which shows those areas in green. So basically, we identified three areas. The front right-hand corner of the property, you will see on the next exhibit is all green. Okay, right, that will also help. But there is another colored one, if you can get, it's probably exhibit A or exhibit B, something like that. It says.
You know what, I probably didn't put it on there.
No, okay, that's fine. This one, we can zoom in the front part of the,
Yeah.
All right, this one is not pre-marked, so we're going to mark this as A30, A26.
It was put in, but I never updated that.
And just what should the title of this be?
What's the title of that?
it's a landscaping plan?
Landscape plan?
Landscape plan? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so Laura, could you zoom in a little?
I can, I may have found the other,
Oh, yeah. No, that's not the one.
that's not the one?
No,
That's A, and then you have B.
No, go to document distribution. Go to the bottom one, file. It's there, landscaping management, what he was talking about.
I got the landscape plan.
Yeah, that plan also identifies the three areas if we,
Which plan do you want me to go to?
the previous one, because this is very clearly identifies those three areas in the front, right?
And it's right here too, Bosco.
Yeah. Perfect, that's great, thanks Laura. So if you can see on these little dark shaded gray areas, those are the three areas that are identified where there is significant trees that Sherry pointed out that we should save. The area on the east side is going to be saved in entirety as is marked. The area that is on the westerly property line,
And west is to the right?
west is to the right, yes. The west is to the right, so the right side, that area is going to be preserved. The area that you see in the middle, that area we have identified, and what Sherry and we have discussed is that is located in the front of our proposed development area. So during construction, we will provide the necessary fencing and everything and review that again with Sherry in a field. Because see during the construction what can be really preserved, looking at a root system of the trees and see whether our construction will impact any of those trees in the front. But the idea of this plan is to identify the area that we really need to preserve and protect, provide protective fencing, so during the construction, none of that area can get impacted.
And this is a conditional use, and one of the issues that we had last meeting was that if we weren't able to provide the buffer on the eastern side, then we would be at the wrong board. But we've now addressed that, and we now comply with the buffer standard. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes? You say?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I'm just Sherry shaking his head, so yes.
And as Mr. Piscopo already testified, we address all the other conditional use standards, so that was the only one in question,
Correct.
correct?
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
In addition, we did discuss, a neighbor appeared at the last meeting who is to the east, and Mr. Piscopo did meet with those two neighbors, actually, he met with, and they had requested a fence along the property line. Can you describe for the
Sure.
board what?
Yeah, so.
And I don't think they're here, but we agreed that we would tell the board what their request was.
So the property line on the left side, as you can see, of the first corner portion of the property, which is commercial, that is abandoned house, right behind it, there is two houses. And you can see on that aerial on the left-hand side right there. So John met with both of those homeowners, and they wanted 8 feet high. Actually, the plan already proposes 8 feet high fence, but they preferred, instead of a board-on-board fence, they preferred a chain link with an ivy, an artificial ivy, like through the mesh. So it looks like a green. It looks like a green, natural, vegetative wall kind of thing. They preferred that type of a fencing rather than board-on-board fence, because they think board-on-board fence over the time deteriorates and it's difficult to maintain, while this can have a longer life.
So we have no preference. We just said that we would present it to the board, and we would defer to the board and the board professionals as to what they thought was the best fence for that area. We were proposing board on board. But again, we defer to the board and its professionals on that point.
Is that on top of the berm?
No, that goes right on the property line. So the berm is on our side of the property.
Got it.
And berm starts at a minimum 6 feet high, which is like in a front portion of the site. By the time it gets near those two houses, the berm is almost 8 feet high. Because what we did is we went up from our property and then went down. Their properties are much lower, so from their side, the berm is almost 8 feet high on those two houses. We also talked about another thing. The homeowners felt that fence alone may not address their concern. They suggested we plant evergreen, arborvitaes, along their property line, and they were okay and actually willing to put those trees on their property. And they will maintain it, so we will install it. So we'll put arborvitaes at 6-7 feet on a center, about 30 plus trees we were to plant in front of the fence on their side of the property. So this was the two requests they made. We want to present that to the board, and we are accepting both of those conditions subject to whatever the board members thinks we should do.
And then, I know John went into testimony about operations and everything before we got tied up with the landscaping issue. But you heard me say at the beginning of the presentation that we do have an NJDEP DOT permit for the state access point. Is that correct?
Yes, we have
And you also heard me stipulate that we would address all of the technical comments contained within the board professional reports?
Yes, we have gone through the reports and we'll address all of those concerns in revised plans.
And that really concludes our presentation. We could summarize if the board wants to hear a little more about the application. We can go back and just cover some of the stuff we did.
I mean, I would like to hear from Laura, Christine, and Sherry about if they have any comments or
That's fine.
concerns.
So, Mr. Chairman, this is our fifth review, so
Right.
the applicant's engineer has really gone back and forth and attempted to address all of our comments. So with their agreement to comply with our technical comments, and based upon the prior testimony, I don't have anything additional. I do want to just note the waivers that were previously put on. There was a lighting waiver, the driveway being 30 feet in width, which in some instances we promote, and others we say the 24 feet. I'm in favor of the 30-foot aisle, given this type of application. The next has to do with the waiver to contribute to the tree replacement fund. There's approximately, I think, a deficit, which puts them to have the waiver. And then the final item had to deal with public sidewalk being provided along Route 33. And should the board act favorably upon that, they would contribute into the township sidewalk fund. The only other thing I would want to note is just how the board feels about the fencing and the trees. I obviously have no issue with the trees being placed in front of the fence with the representation. I think it was approximately 30 trees. And the fence with the ivy, I mean, we can certainly hear from Sherry. I'm not sure from a maintenance perspective that we would recommend that, but this would be a private fence, and if that was the preference of the neighbors, I would certainly defer to the board.
Got it.
I think kind of really just to reiterate a lot of Laura's comments, they've gone back and forth and addressed a lot of our concerns previously. We would recommend a board-on-board fence over the chain link fence with ivy, but certainly, if the neighbors would prefer the chain link fence, I think that's their preference.
Laura, was the issue with the back of the lot where they're gonna have their storage with their trucks, it was supposed to be bluestone, and then you guys want that solid concrete? That's all addressed?
Well, we would like to talk about that, but we'll let them finish, and then we'll do that.
I mean, pretty much what everyone else said, if the residents want that kind of fence, I mean, personally, I would recommend a black chain link fence, and then if you're planting on either side, you see plants rather than fake green plastic stuff. So that's what I would want. But If they want that other request, that's fine. For what you said you told the residents you'd add, is that going to be 10 green giants on each lot? Like how, did you make us?
No, I think both lots are about 100 feet wide. So we figured if we plant about 7 feet on center, on each lot you probably get about 15, 16 trees. So
And that would be a private agreement between us and the adjacent property owner.
So that's not going to come off the replacement requirement? No.
It doesn't count towards on-site trees.
Okay. All right, that's fine.
Unless you want it to count.
yeah, no,
Not
we are
those trees.
planting. We are planting them. I mean,
Does anybody else have any questions to this point?
I have a question. It's about the berm. Is it would you call that a natural berm? Is it dirt? Is it soil?
No,
What brings it up that high?
it is a minimum requirement from the board is 6 feet high. So as I said, near the building in the front part of the site is a 6 feet high. And then as you go in the back, the property drops down, but the berm continues to stay as the same elevation.
But it's constructed with soil.
Oh, yes, it's
and
constructed
plantings.
soil and plantings on the top, yes. The landscaping plan that you have over there shows that planting that you see on the left side of that parking lot,
Yep.
that is all on the top of the berm, on the side of the berm and the top of the berm. That's what that planting is,
Okay.
yes.
Does it get washed away during bad storms, or how does the berm work then?
No, basically, you have to build this as a stable berm, so you cannot do more than 3 to 1 slope. So that is what the berm will be built with. And actually, the vegetation on top kind of holds the soil much better, so it doesn't let it move. And this is pretty common, I'm pretty sure you may have seen many places.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anything else?
All right, we'd like to discuss the concrete versus what we're going to propose as an alternative is about a $6-figure difference. So that's the reason why. So Bhaskar, can you suggest?
Sure, so
And it's only in an area where the equipment will be stored, not the entire parking lot.
Correct.
Okay.
So if you see this rendering, you're looking at it, the property to the parking lot that's on the right-hand side edge, and then there is some parking all the way in the back. So there's only 2 areas that we are talking about paving instead of concrete, because the client looked at the cost of a concrete, and concrete will crack, would be hard to repair, and he felt that instead of that, if we have a paving, and we did provide a detail on the plan of a heavy-duty pavement, which is 4 inches of DGA, and then we have 5 inch of base course and a 2 inch of top. So it's a heavy-duty pavement specs we provided, and he felt that that would be better for him to provide than to do a concrete. And I think there was an application a couple of years ago was a similar. So on our plans, there is a detail for the heavy-duty pavement.
Are
So-
the board professionals okay with that? Because I know Jen had issue with the asphalt versus the concrete.
Yeah,
Not
she-
to speak for her, just to
Yeah, I
just
mean, I think her
clarify.
issue mainly was too, she didn't want it to be gravel, right? She wanted a impervious surface there, and she had expressed a preference to concrete. I will tell you, I don't have, I can support asphalt being there as well. It's going to provide a same seal. The concern is there being a leak and the leak seeping into the ground. So I definitely share that concern as it relates to gravel. But I think if it's asphalt and it's appropriately essentially capped, for lack of a better term, I don't have a strong issue. I would also note it's not, like our ordinance doesn't specify. So given that, I don't have an issue with the proposal as presented.
Understood.
And I would agree. I think the issue is, any type of leakage. So as long as it is impervious, we're okay with it.
Thank you. I was just trying to close the loop.
Is it asphalt or is it DGA?
No, basically it's a whole pavement surface, just like you see in the roads or the highway, like a township roadway.
Looks like an asphalt.
Yeah, it's an asphalt,
Okay.
but I described the whole thickness
Got
of
it.
what we're going to build
Got it.
underneath, so you get an idea of, this very strong and sturdy product that we're going to build there.
But
It's two
Nick,
lifts
to
of
your point
asphalt
on the
and then stone
plan,
underneath.
it was proposed as gravel.
Got it, right, okay. Cool.
And what's the rest of the storage area used for? So you're just putting that in those areas within the red dotted lines, so the rest is gravel. So I know you said you're going to be storing trucks back there and pipe for
The area
underground
that is,
directional drilling. What else is going to be for that other large area that's still stone? Going to be stored there?
some of that area is obviously used for maneuvering vehicle, right? Because when we going into parking and that area, there is center aisle, and then two red outlined area that you see on that map are the two outside storage areas where there is a material storage.
No equipment, just
There is no
material.
equipment stored there, yes.
Just for maneuverability.
Yeah, like excess material left over or early delivery they get sometime.
The rest of the thing is bluestone?
Kind of. It's not bluestone per se, it's like an asphalt. He was describing the entire profile, so
For
base and everything.
the entire profile for the two red areas is base plus the asphalt.
Yeah,
No, not
DGA
red.
base asphalt.
The red, this plan doesn't show it, but there is a parking area that, you see the square red box up on the top?
Yes.
On the left side of that, if you see there is a parking spaces, and then right underneath it, there is a parking spaces along the right-hand side of that parking lot. It's, you can see that, there is like a diagram of a trailer, vehicle.
I don't think that's his question. The question is, in these dashed areas, if you could see my cursor, this dashed area and this dashed area.
Oh, that's stone, that's a stone areas.
That's just the two stone areas.
The entire parking lot is stone except for this area that we described that would be paved. That is the area that is where the vehicle is gonna be parked.
See, the issue I have with that is, we're not gonna be there 24/7. You're saying those vehicles are gonna be parked in those areas, but if they're not, and some of the vehicles leak, it goes onto the stone, right?
Sal, is there any reason why we can't just pave those two areas? If we make the concession to
Yes.
not have
Yes.
concrete?
Yes.
So that would be my
Just pave it.
recommendation,
We'll
just
pave it.
have the,
So the whole area will be paved.
The whole parking lot's
It's
paved.
designed that.
correct.
Yes,
Right, wouldn't that just be easier?
yes, we said yes, we're good.
Yep.
Thank you, Sal. I'm not trying to make it difficult,
No,
Sal,
no,
just,
and they're fine. Well, wait, let's bring Mr. Kometz up on that one, because
I don't wanna.
it's his money. Can we have him sworn in?
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please state and spell your name for the record.
My name is Kevin Kometz.
Just get a little closer to the mic, sir.
My name is Kevin Kometz.
Hey, Kevin, you're the principal of the company that's the applicant, correct?
I am.
And your
Correct.
company's under contract to buy this property, assuming you get all your approvals?
Correct.
All right, so why don't you just explain to the board what your vision of how this rear parking lot is supposed to be constructed and what it's being used for, so that we all understand, and then we can answer the questions.
The way it's shown on the drawings is pretty accurate. The areas that are marked out in red is mostly for material storage.
And
Not
what type of material?
Materials for us are being pipes, mostly. We are a utility contractor. We install pipes under highways. So we have pipe, leftover pipe from jobs, and material that comes in that's stored. The parking spaces that are shown in the yellow are the areas that we propose to pave. We don't have a problem with the back right-hand corner, the back right west side corner. If we want to continue the paving all around the whole back side of the property and along the entire west side of the property, I think that would be sufficient. Paving the entire area is a huge amount of paving, hundreds of tons, the big area.
I guess then, is there a way, Kevin, and without redesigning it, but where we can have the limit? Because to Mr. Leggio's point is, if we just have this red area as saying is gravel, right?
Gravel?
There's no way, like, how do we keep it contained then? Because the gravel's going to end up on your asphalt, or how do we keep the vehicles? Is there a way for you to just have, whether that rectangular area rotates, and I'm rotating it, and no one's looking at what I'm saying, like over here, so that there's a clearly defined gravel area versus pavement, so that this way we know exactly where the vehicles will be versus the storage?
If we carry an asphalt line from the east corner of the property to the west, all the way across the whole back, and then The west side of the property from the back corner all the way up to the front, that would only be used for equipment or truck parking,
So
right?
is that about half the width?
Roughly 50 feet,
50 feet deep from this.
50 feet deep from the
Guys,
edge of the
one
property
at a
line.
time.
Okay, so you're proposing for the board to consider 50 feet from the west property line in to be paved, as Mr. Halari described, and then the entire rear strip being paved,
Correct,
parallel to that rectangular box.
east to west,
Correct.
So essentially like an L.
including that red rectangular box. I believe that box shows material and equipment storage. I was always under the impression that was going to be macadam or,
So about how wide will the east to west strip be?
well, whatever the width is of that usable
Entire.
space.
Okay.
So it's the entire thing minus the L. So,
To simplify it, just go right across the whole back. Right.
right, like right here? Can you look up on the screen and see can you see my cursor?
Yes.
So you're saying like this way, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
And then 50 feet in from the west point.
correct.
correct.
And that goes right out to the road? The pavement?
Not west, east.
Yes, the pavement, the parking area, so just so the board's clear, access to the site, all this area is fully paved.
That's fully paved?
That is
Okay.
correct. So we're literally just talking about this L area, and as long as it's defined in such a way, I think then there is a distinction between the areas.
Yeah, because you got the retention pond right behind that, so
Correct.
if we had leaching, we don't want to contaminate the pond, the retention pond.
I thought it was a swimming pool. I'm sorry.
And we could, assuming the board were to grant this approval, we would prepare an exhibit consistent with what we just described, so you have on record what we've discussed.
Is there a fence around the retention pond?
Yes.
We have one on the
Yeah,
plan?
we have a fence around it.
Okay. Listen, that's Laura, that's better than, I'm not trying to cost you more money, Mr. Commence, we're just concerned that we've had applicants come up here and say, yeah, sure, yeah, no problem, and then once you get granted, it never gets done, so,
I think it makes it more practical.
yeah, it just especially plowing, right? You're gonna come in, you're on asphalt, and then if you're gonna come straight down the parking lot, you'll be able to stay on the asphalt,
Correct.
right to the back, right to the back line, because you're not plowing on top of stone,
We don't plow snow.
unless you want to make a mess, so.
And we still need guidance on the fence too, if you want, like Shari suggested, a black chain link.
I mean, what's the board's feeling? I mean,
I don't care.
obviously, I'm going to side with Sherry on this, but if, you guys.
Once those trees grow in, these neighbors are,
I
the
agree.
fence is a waste of
I
time.
would recommend,
Yeah.
well,
With Sherry on the chain link on this one.
Yeah, I think the chain link makes sense because once the tree's growing, you're not going to see it.
it's kind of a happy medium.
That's fine,
All
we're
right.
good with that. We just agreed we'd present their position, we
Yeah,
have
no,
no
understood.
preference.
I appreciate
Just
it.
make sure in your agreement with those neighbors that you're not responsible for water.
Trust me, we know. We
You're gonna
know.
put in,
We're-
a bunch of
We're gonna
trees.
plant them and then it's up to them.
That's on that, I'm just saying.
Anything else, ladies and
And,
gentlemen?
and just to be clear,
Sure.
if for some reason one of the neighbors changed their mind and they don't want us to install the plants, we don't want that as a condition of approval.
Well, of
If
course,
they
yeah.
agree, we're doing it. If they
Sure,
change
sure.
their mind,
Yep,
We're good?
everybody. Yeah, I guess at this time, I'll open it to the public with any questions or comments on the application.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Seeing none, close the public portion.
I just have one question. Mr. Alfieri, the last statement that you made, I just want to make sure we capture this in the resolution correctly. You are stipulating that you're offering to plant the trees, but ultimately, that's going to be a decision that's going to be, accepted by those
those
property owners?
property owners, correct.
Okay.
Any closing statements?
No, I think we now finally addressed all the concerns that the board professionals had, most importantly, and we request that the board grant the approval.
Great. All right, let the record state that At 7:44, Mr. Tannenhouse decides to come on in. All right, with that being said, I will entertain a motion for case number SP 1111, Comets Incorporated.
I will make motion for approval, SP 111.
Mr. Cristiano with the motion.
I'll second it.
Mr. Leggio with the second.
And a motion and a second. Mr. Cristiano?
Yes.
Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
Mr. Rebel?
Yes.
Ms. Pike?
Yes.
Mr. Carbonic?
Yes.
And Chairman Husser.
Yes,
Motion carries. Application's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Have a good night. Okay, the next and final application for this evening is case number SP 1117 DR Horton Inc. NJ-Howell Ridge. This is for preliminary and final major site plan and preliminary and final major subdivision with ancillary variance and design waiver relief. Thanks. Yeah, Counselor, how are
Mr.
you?
Chairman, John Junko, Giordano Howell, and
John.
Cecil appearing on behalf of the applicant. The applicant here is DR Horton, and they are a contract purchaser of this property. This property has been reviewed by the township. It is part of the affordable housing plan, and ordinances have been developed to accommodate this development, and our application generally complies with them. This application is located, it has really two parcels, if you will, one called the north parcel, and the second is the south parcel, surprisingly. The north parcel is on the north side of Casino Drive. It's around 17 acres. It has substantial wetlands. It's not proposed for development of the site. It is part of the calculation of the overall site area and is proposed for dedication to Howell Township. The southern side is where the property is proposing to develop. That's approximately 236 acres. And on that parcel, on that property, they are proposed a total of 458 residential units, with a 30% set aside for affordable units, or 138 of those are affordable. This was also the result of the Mount Laurel 4 decision and the Howell Township compliance plan that was submitted to and approved by the courts. And in order to get to that point, the applicant and the township consultants all worked together to develop the design. This is a inclusionary development. The township planners and the governing body determined it was a suitable location for an inclusionary development and that it is a suitable opportunity for affordable. Subsequent to those decisions, the township did adopt ordinances to permit this development. The application is substantially in compliance with the ordinance. You'll see that we're requesting some waivers for relatively innocuous elements of it because, quite frankly, not everybody could have thought of everything like some of these, which are pretty interesting. In any event, the application does show several different housing types. In the first, there will be 139 market-rate single-family homes. Second will be 181 market-rate townhouses. There will be 80 affordable multifamily stacked dwellings and 58 affordable apartments. There's open space, a recreation area, a water tower is proposed for this project, and our civil engineer has been working with New Jersey American on that, and will be able to report to you that this water tower is not only to serve this project, but to increase the overall water pressure in the township, which New Jersey American thought was an issue. And it's also one of the highest points in Howell Township, so that made it attractive and desirable for the water company, too. Roadways, landscaping, stormwater management, all part of the application. And there are several subdivisions proposed because each of these housing types, some are located as communities and developed in that section. There will be one lot for the proposed apartments, a lot for the stacked affordable townhouses, and then the larger lot for the market rate houses, single-family and townhomes. The first subdivision is for the affordable apartments. The second subdivision is the large one, which has 320 market rate units in it, and that has 139 single-family homes and 181 townhouses that I referred to a little earlier. There's further two major site plans within that application. One is for the 58 affordable apartments, which you'll see are at the northern side of the site towards Casino Drive. And the second is the stacked townhouses, which are at the southern end near West Farms Road. Those are the significant affordable component of the project. The affordable component, as I mentioned, is 138 units, which in fact complies with the ordinance requirement and with basically with the agreement between the applicant and the township with regard to the provision of affordable housing. So our application does seek preliminary and final major subdivision approval and preliminary and final major site plan approval. And of course, we have also pending applications before the NJDEP, Soil Conservation District, Monmouth County Planning Board, and even though it doesn't really need an application because they're building a new water tower, there's also application pending for the public water and connection through the sewer system from Howell Township and into the Manasquan River Regional Sewer System, ultimately to be processed in Ocean County. And the application does seek 5 design waivers. Our applicant witnesses will go through it, but basically there's a issue of light intensity on some of the foot candle measurements. It's relatively insignificant, and I think you've run into that quite a bit the way the ordinance is written, but nonetheless, that is a minor deviation. The application also seeks a modification from the curb ramp spacing ordinance, which requires curbs and rampings every 65 feet, which in the parking lot areas, but I don't think we ask for that waiver because it isn't really consistent with a residential parking lot, and Leanne can explain that detail. In order to, we further are seeking a waiver to provide for some portions of the parking areas to be made in porous asphalt pavement, which is a methodology to create infiltration under stormwater management rules, and porous pavement is approved and accepted through the NJDOT. We're also looking for a partial waiver for sidewalk frontage of West Farms Road, even though it is required by ordinance on one side of the streets. Our application only affects one side, but that side happens to have very significant impacts from freshwater wetlands and grade and slope. Again, details we'll present in the testimony. And finally, our application complies with the residential site improvement standards for parking space size, length and width, 90-degree parking, and also for 18-foot parking stalls with 24-foot drive aisles, all in compliance with the RSIS, and at variance, but at waiver from your ordinance. There is a request for a bulk C variance. Our application seeks 2 12-foot long by 3-foot high identification signs, one at Casino, one at West Farms. The ordinance would permit only a 10-foot wide, 10-foot size sign. These are larger, 12 by 3, 36 feet, but they're all low and profiled and in a landscaped scenario. That's each. There, we have received environmental review letters, Fire Bureau Safety, Farmer Advisory Report, Shade Tree Review, and that's pretty much what I can tell you in general, but you probably heard all that already. So I have several witnesses this evening. Our engineer is Leanne Hoffman from Hammer Land Engineering, and we have Scott Kennel, our traffic consultant from McDonough Ray Associates. The architect is Robert Regazzoni, but he is not available for this evening's meeting. And we have environmental consultant is Amy Jones at Du Bois and Associates Environmental, and our planner is Christine Cafone of Cafone Consulting Group. We are prepared to begin the presentation as soon as you're ready.
Let's go.
With that, then, I would like to call Leanne Hoffman, our engineer. Mr. Chairman, do you want me to stay here, or should I sit at the table?
Either, whatever you're comfortable.
I'll
There's
sit
a
next
microphone
to,
at the table, John.
I'm sorry?
There's a microphone at the table, so we can
Yes, I was
still
going to
hear you.
sit next to Leanne, and
Yeah, that's
if
fine.
needed, we'll jump back up to
Sure.
help everybody.
Okay. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state and spell your name for the record.
Sure. Leanne R. Hoffman, Hoffmann.
I'm going to offer Leanne is an expert in the field of civil engineering. Leanne, would you present your credentials to this board?
Sure. Good evening. I'm a licensed professional engineer, professional planner, and certified municipal engineer in the state of New Jersey. I graduated Rutgers College Engineering in 1987. I received my licensure in 1992. I've been practicing civil engineering for 30-plus years. I have testified as far north as Midland Park, as far south as Wildwood, Wildwood Crest, and Egg Harbor Township. I have served as zoning board engineer in East Brunswick. I have served as planning board engineer in Barnegat Township. I was the director of engineering and planning in Neptune Township for 14 years. I am currently working in private development for Hammerland Engineering. I previously worked for Shore de Palma for 11 years.
I think you're great. All right.
I mean, if you want to.
Okay.
I won't.
So Leanne, did you or others under your direction prepare all the exhibits and plans submitted to the board?
Yes.
So, can
Do
you
you want me to
start?
go? You want me to go first?
Why don't you
Okay.
tell the story about how we got to this point?
Okay. Excuse me, I'm just going to get my abbreviated plan set out in case there's any questions. I'm looking at the exhibit. So the exhibit on the board tonight shows the southern parcel, which is the subject of the development for D.R. Horton. For, as John previously said, the 458-unit development in compliance with the ML14 zone. The total application consists of the parcel to the north of Casino Drive, which is 16.9 acres, block 143, lots 6 and 6.01. That backs up to the Manasquan River. It has an FHA approval on it, and it has a wetlands LOI approval on it. That parcel, as John stated, is going to be dedicated to the Township of Howell as per the ML14 ordinance. The parcel that we're mostly going to focus on tonight is Block 144, as you can see, the various lots, which goes from Casino Drive all the way down to West Farms Road. The design of the parcel, as under my direction, is RSIS compliant and NJDEP stormwater compliant. The parcel has been developed in conjunction with the professionals, multiple meetings and discussions with both CME and Leon Asavakian. Out of the 236 acres on the southern parcel, we are preserving 145 acres, or 62% of the development. And if you go back to the rendering for a second, one of the reasons for that was the strict compliance with the environmental regulations and also the steep slope ordinance that you have in Howell Township, as outlined also in the ML14. So it's not a typical everyday platted subdivision with roads at 90 degrees. This is a very interesting and unique development, where when you drive through here, you know, it will not only serve to be a traffic calming measure, but it also serves to be a more aesthetically pleasing development. As John already stated, and as required in the ML14, we have met the requirement of the 138 affordable units. Starting on Casino Drive, there is a boulevard proposed coming in off Casino Drive. When you enter there, there would be 58 affordable three-story apartment units. At the end of the compliant parking lot by those units is a separate recreation playground area. As you go further into the development, those units shown in red on the screen are market rate townhouses, so you can see nothing's really segregated. The development works in and amongst itself. Everyone is one community, other than the line that would be the subdivision for the apartments.
The red units shown on the rendering are the market rate townhouses, 2-car garages. When you go from north to south on the main spine road, Whaler Way, and then you would make a right, there's another recreation area within the townhouse community, and the last recreation area is all the way to the south. As you go out to West Farms Road, in these stacked units, there's a large circular area, thank you, in the middle, which is the third recreation area. Those recreation areas, as per your ordinance, we need to have 10 square feet per market rate unit, which would equate to 3,200 square feet of recreation area. We have 5,025 square feet, not including the sidewalks that go throughout the entire development and the green space that's being preserved. Hold on, I lost my spot. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Just for the board's information, both the north and the south site have already been to the DEP for LOIs for the wetlands. They are valid for the next 4 years. They were received last year. The north site across Casino Drive also has a flood hazard area of elevation 68. All the wetlands buffers have 50 feet as determined by the DEP. The development site, which we're focusing on tonight, has 823 feet of frontage along Casino Drive and 600 feet of frontage on West Farms Road. Both of those roads, as you know, West Farms Road and Casino Drive are under local jurisdiction. The site is surrounded mostly by the ARE2 zone based on the Howell Township 2022 zoning map. There's a small portion to the southwest, which is the R2 zone, which permits single family. As you know, the AR2 zone permits residential, agricultural, community, municipal public uses, and multi-generational family accommodations. I got all that. You went over the unit mix, the zoning.
Well, each section, is there going to be an HOA?
Yes, and the developer can speak to that.
Okay.
But yes, so when we subdivide off the apartments, there'll be an HOA. When we subdivide off the stacked affordable, there'll be an HOA. And then all the market rate, the 320 townhouses and houses, single-family houses, will have an HOA.
So the Township of Howell, our Public Works, is going to be responsible for what part of this?
So the proposal here tonight, and I don't know if this is the planning board jurisdiction or the council jurisdiction, is that the main spine road, Whaler Way, would be a public road. All the rest would be private.
Yeah, so the township's only on the hook for the main drag coming through.
That's the proposal.
Okay.
Now I lost my spot again. Hold on.
When you say on the hook, though, understand that the actual manpower of maintenance, but there is a law called the Kelly Act that does require some financial contribution from the town to homeowners associations for things like street lighting and stuff like that. So there's probably some obligation on part of the town.
No, I just mean, Mr. Cucchiaro, for like snow plowing and,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not talking about cutting the grass or stuff like that, but
Okay.
you guys are going to...
Well, I think what Mr. Cucchiaro was trying to say is that the cost of maintenance are borne by the township for the snow removal and any emergencies created by weather or tree falls and so forth. But that is, of course, the function of the taxation that goes on to pay for that. So on the hook, yes, but each of the property owners will pay their fair proportionate share of taxes, just like everybody else.
I also wanted to note, for the record, the ML14 zone allows for 20% building coverage, and this proposal is at 6.14%. So that kind of goes hand in hand with the amount of preservation that we did on the large portion of the land. In addition, the impervious coverage allowed in this zone is 40%, and we're at 16.8%. So also to highlight for the board, the lot size for the single-family lots, the minimum lot size is 6,000 square feet. This proposal doesn't have any single-family lots that are under 7,100 square feet. So when people move in, there's always the concern of what they're going to add or what they're going to do. And a lot of these single-family homes also open up to green space. You know, a lot of times you have your neighbor backed up to you or next to you, but we were able to propose lot sizes that are almost 20% larger than what's required by the ordinance. In addition, the townhouse strings, the ordinance is pretty specific about the length of the buildings and the number of units per building. They all comply. There are 2 points of access as required by RSIS. Both points of access off of West Farms Road and Casino Drive are both boulevard type access. Both of those individual lanes are 20 feet wide as required for OEM purposes. We have provided a circulation plan to the consultants. There's a couple comments on them which we can comply with. All the interior roads are 28 feet wide with sidewalks on both sides, except for Whaler Way, which seems to be the main thoroughfare through the development, and that road is 30 feet wide. There was a question about parking. So the plan is parking compliant. Each section is parking compliant. As you're aware, for the multifamily, the site plans, the apartments, we have to also provide EV spaces at 15% of the required parking. So the parking requires 115 spaces, and of the 115, we would need 18 EV spaces. We are providing, in the apartment section, 149 spaces, which includes 22 EV spaces. So we're not only exceeding the parking requirement, which there's always a concern about guests and additional cars, we're also exceeding the EV space requirement. For the multifamily at the southern section near West Farms Road, we have a total of 169 spaces with 25 EV spaces. The requirement in that area is 164 spaces and 25 EV spaces.
Just one distinguishment, on the northern end, the multifamily are apartments.
Yes.
On the southern end, they're stacked townhouses.
They're multifamily stacked units.
Multifamily stacked townhouses.
No townhouses. The landscaping package, we have also met with Sherry in the field, and we've had discussions with her. Just to give the board an idea, we're not only preserving the 145 acres, but we're proposing 632 deciduous trees, 278 evergreen trees, 179 ornamentals, 1,224 deciduous shrubs, 1,045 evergreen shrubs, various ground cover, etc. We did meet with Sherry with respect to the buffers. That was a question. There's a 50-foot perimeter buffer as required, and there would be selective clearing, as you could see, all the green space to get the roads in and the site in. What Sherry suggested and what we did was we put together, and it's shown on the landscape plan, we put together a cluster of plants. So if she comes out to the field, I think the landscape plan is like sheet 82 or something.
Sheet what?
Try 80s, Laura, in the 80s somewhere. 84, 85. I lose track. The plan sheet's like 100. Yes, it's somewhere on there. But so the intent of the cluster plan for the buffer, it might have been right there. It might have been back one. Is that when we go and do clearing in the field and Sherry is out there inspecting, if there's an area where we think it could use supplemental planting, we already have provided a detail, and she'll say, okay, I need so many clusters here, so many clusters there. So we have created a separate table for those amount of trees. That supplemental planting is not included in the amount of trees that I already spoke about.
So that would be in addition to the quantities that you just described.
Yes, that's correct.
And we're agreeing that would be under the guidance and direction of the board's consultant.
Yes. The lighting proposed is as per your standard. It's the Cobra head lighting. It's aluminum. The mounting height is 30 feet. I think I had to submit a supplemental plan. There was a plan sheet missing from the set of 145 sheets. I submitted sheet 95. I think you have it. It shows some of the items that were outlined in the review letter. It shows the mounting height. It shows the foundation detail. It shows the color. To get into the review letter, one of the comments was we were a little short on the parking lot lighting. So we didn't meet the 0.3 minimum requirement, so we have to add in our compliance package, we have to add a couple more light poles there in order to give the proper lighting. And the waiver requested had to do with the ordinance requirement says you cannot go over 0.5 foot candles in roads and streets, and we're at 0.55 to 0.6. So we're a hundredth higher than what's required. The utilities, to briefly go over the utilities, all the utilities are coming in from the north, from Casino Drive. There's an existing gas line there that will enter the site. There's an existing water line there. So the water line is going to come into the site. Based on our meetings with New Jersey American Water, this spot is a prime spot that they've been looking at for years because the highest elevation here is approximately 210 feet. The site goes from elevation 80 at Casino Drive to the high point of about 208 feet. In our meetings with New Jersey American Water, they basically told us that they have a pressure issue all throughout Howell Township, and they're looking for a site to equalize that pressure and also get additional storage. So we have carved out a lot within the site at the high point. For a standpipe tank, it will be 100 feet high, and it will be 90 feet in diameter. It's a 1.5 million gallon tank. It will also serve as the loop for this water system. That water tank is allowed and is a permitted use in the ML14 zone. We're happy to be able to provide them this site because it's definitely a public benefit, not only for this development, but in my conversations with New Jersey American Water, they say it's a public benefit for the entirety of Howell Township, because all of Howell Township is under the gradient of 280, which would be the height of the proposed tank.
Leanne, the entire water tank and facility are compliant with the ordinance requirements, correct?
That's correct. So the tank would be...
One other thing. Board, are you comfortable with are you able to understand the location of the tank? Okay.
I'd like to see that again, by the way.
Okay.
Can you go back to the rendering for a second? I don't know. Thanks. So at the bottom left, keep going left a little more, right there. Hold on.
What am I looking for, Leanne?
So the tank.
The tank's here.
Right there.
Yes, right in the middle there. So there's a driveway with selective clearing to keep the trees around there. The elevation at the base of the tank is approximately 183. I talked about gas and I talked about water. The sanitary sewer. So the sanitary sewer for this site all flows by gravity down to the lower right of the rendering. If you could go all the way down toward West Farms, right, and there's a pump station outside of the stacked units. That pump station will have a 3,000-foot force main on site. And then on-site, it turns to gravity at a manhole. From on-site, it goes from a gravity manhole north. On-site, it goes from a gravity manhole north to Casino Drive. When it hits Casino Drive, it will also run by gravity to the east to Havens Bridge Road, Lemon and Havens Bridge Road. It will make a left, and it will tie into a manhole outside the cartway, right outside of MRSA. We've already went over that with MRSA. We have our WQMP at the DEP slowly moving through and at the county. So that would basically handle the sanitary sewer issue.
Leanne, I don't want to cut you off. One thing I want to note for the board, though, locally, you only have preliminary sewer. And I just want to note, as this is designed, I just want a comment on the record that you understand our road opening ordinance and the restoration that would be required for the installation of the off-site sanitary sewer.
Full road width.
Correct.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes. Right, so that would be full road restoration on Casino, and then as you turn down Havens Bridge. Correct, Laura? Is that what we're?
Yes.
Okay. And then when the sanitary sewer when Whaler Way hits Casino Drive on the north, there's approximately 2,200 feet of gravity line that I was just talking about that ends up at the manhole off the cartway right outside of MRSA. The stormwater management, this application not only is here before Howell Township, but it's also at the DEP for a flood hazard application. Basically, the stormwater management for this site, as per the local ordinance and as per DEP regulations, has been designed in accordance with the Best Management Practices Manual. There are 14 large-scale basins, and there are 33 small-scale basins. Of the small-scale basins, 4 of them are the bioretention basins, or part of the new green infrastructure. So they're smaller water quality basins that are also planted, that help filter out the water and make it cleaner before it goes back into the ground. Of those 33 basins, there's 29 that are just recharge basins. So again, in accordance with the BMPs and the water quality, the whole new intent is to get the stormwater back into the groundwater. So those smaller basins, those 33 smaller basins, that's the purpose they serve. And then what happens is they go to one of the large-scale basins. So right now, we've worked with Laura's office. There's some technical comments still in the last review letter that we can comply with. But just to highlight for the board, if you could just move the rendering up one more time. I'm sorry, up like toward West Farms Road so we could see West Farms. And then a little to the left, thanks. That green area off of West Farms Road, the DEP has given us a 300-foot riparian buffer. So the secondary access of West Farms Road, which is required by RSIS, we need a flood hazard permit for that because the new road goes through that 300-foot riparian buffer. As you can see, though, on the rendering, all the green trees to the left of the new entrance, that is currently a single-family home, a pool, a shed. So all that development was currently in the riparian area. So we're restoring more area than we're disturbing with the new road.
You're going to remove all of that development.
Right.
and
So that
restore it.
single-family home, the shed, the pool, the driveway is all coming out, and that whole area is going to be restored and planted as per the DEP planting to allow the natural riparian area to come back. And our road disturbance will be less than what is currently there now.
What is that, what is that flood?
Flood hazard
Yeah,
permit?
does that mean that at some point, water may come up over the road, or are you building up the road so it's out of this flood hazard? What does that mean?
No, it's a designated buffer that they put on where West Farms Road intersects the new Whaler Way, there's a small wetlands area, it's not shown on here to the right. So they put a 300-foot buffer on any water tributary that goes to the Manasquan Reservoir.
Gotcha.
So it doesn't have to do, there are no flood elevations, there are no flood elevation areas with this southern site. We went to the DEP for both the southern and the northern site, and the designation was only given to the northern site. I think in the beginning I said elevation 68 was their flood hazard area, a flood hazard zone. There are no flood zones associated with this southern site. Signage, there's 2 monument signs proposed for this development. Just to clarify when we're talking, because I know that there's a variance required for the signs. And Jen, I think it might have been in your letter. Our detail really shows 12 feet by 5 feet. I just want to make sure that if we have to ask for relief. You said 12 by 3.
I had said 12 by 3 too.
Yeah, so it depends on how you're measuring it. But the 3 feet is like the height from the bottom of the brick to the top of the sign.
That counts.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
Right, so it's 12 by 5, just to be clear. So the ordinance only allows a 4 square foot sign. Our sign is 10 feet back in compliance with the setbacks. But Casino Drive is a marked 40 mile per hour road, so a very small 4 square foot sign isn't really going to identify this site. And there's obviously 458 units here, so you want people to know how to get here. We are asking for a 12-foot by 5-foot sign as per the detail that's shown, and I think that's appropriate based on the speed of the road, and also because the site has a limited amount of frontage on both Casino and West Farms and doesn't open up until you get in it, that type of site identification sign would be warranted here. Also, I forgot to mention, just so the board knows, in addition to the green infrastructure with the small-scale basin and the infiltration basin, we are doing porous pavement in the parking stalls only. And that also is a green infrastructure encouraged by the BMPs. We're doing it only in the parking spaces for the multifamily stacked and parking spaces in the apartments. Just to give a status of the approvals, we have received preliminary approval from the Monmouth County Planning Board. Freehold soils we submitted, and we received comments back. We have to submit back to them. The WQMP is in process. It has, we believe, moved through the DEP and now in the county for review. We did submit to Howell Township Utilities in October of 23. We have not yet received comments back. We have a flood hazard verification that's good until 2026 with a 50-foot riparian zone on the north parcel. And we have the same on the south parcel with no verification, no flood hazard area. We have a wetlands LOI on both parcels. All the wetlands identified on the site received a 50-foot intermediate wetlands buffer, and that application is good until 2027. And the West Farms Road, as I just discussed, FHA application was made earlier this week.
Ian, I'd like to just go back for a second and talk about these, the waivers. The first one you mentioned was the average light intensity, ordinance section 18-22. Could you just give the board a little bit of details and then explain your analysis to what that determines that to be a reasonable request, which is the applicable standard for a waiver?
Sure. So I think the average light intensity allowed by your ordinance is not to exceed 0.5 foot candles on streets and roadways, and our average is, I think I might have stated earlier, 0.55 to 0.6. I think in this type of development where it's not a straight platted subdivision and the roads are somewhat circuitous, you know, and you have preserved areas and trees around them, I think that that's more than appropriate. It's a de minimis, it's 0.05 to 0.1, and I would definitely recommend that.
Then you would find that to be reasonable given the context of the ordinance and the requirements of the site?
Yes.
Okay. The second one, I'd like you to address the ordinance section 188-106C requiring curbing to be no less frequent than one ramp every 65 feet. So could you explain to the board what a ramp is and what that would be applicable for?
Ramps would be access for pedestrians and or ADA compliant. We designed the site to be compliant with the RSIS, so I'm not sure if that waiver is really required. It seems also more like for large parking lots, am I?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I would concur that it would, I would agree with the RSIS. RSIS doesn't speak to the number of curb ramps that are required, and since this is a residential community, I would defer to that standard.
So no waiver.
Leanne, next, you mentioned the porous pavement. Ordinance section 188-106F2 does not permit porous asphalt. However, could you just give the board a little bit of background as to the implementation of the use of porous pavement and by the DCA and the NJDOT and our own findings when we researched the applicability of it?
So RSIS or the DCA and the DEP Best Management Practices Manual not only requires green infrastructure, it also requires that you meet your recharge within your drainage area. So this site has 15 different drainage areas, and every time you break down the drainage area, you have to recharge a certain percentage back to the groundwater. And one of the ways to do that, again, is porous pavement. It's not only a green infrastructure, but it also helps with recharge. As I stated, you can get recharge from your small-scale basins, but you only get so much. So based on the new BMP manual, there's multiple green infrastructure items that you have to do in order to meet your recharge, and porous pavement is one of the ones that we also chose.
So just, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, if I could opine, I agree. It's actually a conflict sort of in our ordinance, and I've even spoken to our township engineer about this, because we both acknowledge that for the DEP regulations, you have to allow green infrastructure. So then by saying we have to pave all the areas, it's almost a direct conflict. And given that it's in parking stalls, I've also discussed with him, and that is the preference to where to put the porous pavement as well. So I take no exception to it and agree that it is consistent with the DEP regulations for green infrastructure.
Okay.
Now?
All right, so, thank you. Then, we're also asking for a waiver for sidewalk along West Farm Road. You've analyzed that with regard to the environmental conditions impact and the demand for the location and the availability to locate the sidewalk.
Yes, so we're asking for a waiver for the sidewalk along West Farms Road as the entrance to our development, the new Whaler Way, which goes into the, I don't know if you could see it on the rendering right now, but Whaler Way, which is proposed off of West Farms Road, has a potential vernal pond on the one side and a wetlands area on the left side. So any additional impervious area would also require treatment and additional stormwater, which would outweigh the benefits of the minimal amount of sidewalk that we were going to put on West Farms Road.
So I'm going to jump in on the sidewalk. I would dispute the minimal sidewalk. We've discussed this countless times on every application. You got to start somewhere. And so, I don't know that I would consider this providing sidewalk at some location on West Farms, which, as you know, has like no shoulder.
How
Minimal.
far is this from the bus stop on 9?
It's a hump.
It is.
Yeah. It's not super close, but, at the end of the day, it's up to the board to decide whether you guys want to push for the sidewalk or you want to get the money for the fund. But if we keep saying, oh, there's no sidewalk, there's never going to be sidewalk, so.
I agree. It's not that, the argument that I'm proposing is not that there's no sidewalk to connect to. The argument is if you look on site plan sheet 40, there's wetlands on both sides of that road, and the road is critical. The road's critical to the development because we need the secondary access. So we're at the DEP now for the new road. If I put the sidewalk in, I'm going to eat into the quote-unquote vernal pond that's been identified by the DEP to the right side of the road, and therefore I'm going to have to put in more MTDs or some type of stormwater in order to treat that impervious area.
I'm not saying that this is not a circumstance that warrants a waiver. I will say that as we've seen in some of these larger developments and how the Board of Ed is going to handle picking up the kids, if the Board of Ed is not going to bring busing into that site, there needs to be sidewalk on West Farms Road.
So let me ask I think I may clarification. Are we talking about sidewalks on West Farms Road or sidewalks on your boulevard to get out to West Farms Road?
Just on West Farms Road.
I think she's talking about West Farms
So
Road.
you do have
are providing sidewalk on Casino Drive, correct?
Yes, for the portion on Casino Drive where our road comes in,
Yes.
that we are providing sidewalks.
And
So
you do
it's
have-
really just on West Farms.
And you do have sidewalks in the boulevard towards,
We have
West
sidewalks
Farms.
on both sides of all roads throughout the development.
So, I mean, we don't have to just make the decision currently. They're asking for the waiver. I understand why they're asking for the waiver based upon the permitting. I would rather have the road, to be perfectly honest. The access is more important to me than the minimal sidewalk, for sure. Because there's access there, and then there'll be access out onto Casino. It will give dual access to the development. It's just something to consider.
Does the RSIS require it?
Does it require it?
Is it required on West Farms?
Yeah.
I don't know, I'd have to look it up. I don't know off the top of my head.
I doubt it.
Because if it does, then you would need a de minimis exception from that as well.
I don't know that it's mandatory, I would have to look that up. I don't even know if
Okay.
that's
188.
Being 8:30, might be a 5-minute break to look that up and take a break. That works.
sounds good to me.
The board will now take a 5-minute recess.
All right, John, you good?
Mr. Chairman, ready?
Good to go.
Okay. Leanne, you left off for a moment on I think you're just wrapping up Forest Pavement and
The RSIS sidewalk requirement. So, I don't believe that the RSIS requires it, but if the board and the professionals prefer, we would request a de minimis waiver from RSIS to not put the sidewalk along West Farms Road.
There's really no room, to be honest, between the environmental impacts of roadway going out to West Farms. And you know me, I'm the one that always pushes for sidewalk.
Yep.
But in this particular instance, I would rather have the access to the development. I don't know if she's gonna ask for a contribution or not, I don't know. They have to provide the contribution. I'm not sure if she's gonna ask for a contribution. And then the township can use that money for sidewalks somewhere else.
You already did. I got the authority.
Yeah, Jen, something you brought up, though, just kind of stuck with me here. What if the buses don't go into this development and you have 300 kids, not 300, but you have 50 kids out there?
So I will say, and I don't mean to speak for the applicant, I will say that we have discussed that with them a lot, and in their defense, they have repeatedly reached out to the Board of Ed and gotten zero response back.
Interesting.
I would say it's unlikely because, you know, like, the buses may not go down like the cul-de-sac areas, but there's enough loops that I think they can navigate their way through without, you know, there's enough loops and the spine road that goes out the casino that I do think a bus will go in there. It may not go down every single cul-de-sac because they're really not supposed to back up, or, you know what I mean? But I do think, and we did discuss this during the design process, that they should have loops as much as possible to avoid that scenario. I would suggest that if at a future point there's an issue with buses going into the development, that you look into maybe putting like a little like concrete pad where you can, that doesn't extend into the wetlands or what have you, where the kids can wait on the side of West Farms Road. Just because we all know that the road has zero shoulder, right? And people, it's a very straight road, people whip down it way beyond the speed limit. But while I do think it's something to think about, I do know for a fact that they have reached out on a number of occasions. The Board of Ed hasn't reached back, and I'm not super surprised because they don't typically figure out their bus routes until they figure out how many kids, how old the kids are, what schools the kids are going to. So I do understand that to an extent, but I do think that maybe in the event that there's an issue right inside the boulevard, when you get past the environmental issues, maybe look at a concrete pad at that location where they could wait off the road, but if the bus doesn't come in, they could wait there.
I mean, would there be a reason that the buses would say, I mean, I understand what you're saying.
So the issue is that the bus won't go down a long cul-de-sac because without a spotter, they're not allowed to back up,
Understood.
right? And they don't typically go down. But if you look at the design, there's only a couple of cul-de-sacs. You know, what's up on the screen now, there's like 3 I can see where the bus probably won't go down that cul-de-sac, and the kids are going to have to go to where it intersects a spine road or a
Of
loop
course.
road. Do I think they're not going to go in here? Probably not. They are going to probably go in here.
Right,
I mean,
okay.
there's enough homes and there's enough ways to loop
Yeah,
around.
yep, okay.
But in the event that it doesn't, if there's a pad location close to West Farms Road that maybe it's not in the environmental area, past that boulevard,
Right.
where the kids could wait in the event the buses don't come in the unlikely event the buses don't come in, there's a safe place for them to wait, the bus can stop, they can then go down the road or whatever. I think that's a better alternative.
We could do a pad location near where the pump station is outside of the stacked units, and we could do another one by the apartment and the townhouse units on the casino side.
I mean, that might be a good idea.
Because those areas are not constrained as much. And we did, thank you, Jen, based on some of our preliminary meetings, add that connection from that short little cul-de-sac going up the steep slope for that reason. You had
Yes.
brought that up, and we're like, oh, we better loop this. So we tried to minimize the short cul-de-sacs that the buses would have to go down.
Yeah, I mean,
I'd rather have a definitive answer on that. Is there any way?
You're not going to get a
Right.
definitive answer. The Board of Ed will not give an answer until they know how many kids and how old they are, because how old they are dictates what bus they go on, how many buses have to go in here, what high school they're going to, based upon Freehold Regional School District. You're not going to get an answer before this project is built and occupied. We've asked
Yeah,
them.
but that dictates to me, what if me would not like a pad there, rather the bus come in? That would.
You
alter
can't
my
control it.
decision.
So what I'm saying is,
there's an alternative, and I would say, don't put it in, have it there in the event they don't come in, but we're not getting an answer before this application comes to fruition. The Board of Ed will not opine on it, because what happens if there's 6 kids in the whole development? I mean, and they're all like, one's first grade, one's 8th grade, 3 are 10th grade, one's 12th grade. And the 10th graders go to Howell High School and the 12th grader goes to Freehold High School. They will not give you an answer until they know what they have to deal with. And the project is gonna take a while to build, so you're not gonna get an answer for a couple years. So what they're saying is that in the event, unlikely event that the Board of Ed won't come in, there's options for them to provide pads for the kids to wait.
We could show it as a future, like.
Correct.
And on the, if we get to a point where there's compliance
Almost like
plans-
Green Bank parking, right? So
Right,
they have
I
it
could
there
show
in the
it as
event.
potential.
Right.
Well, especially in this day and age where, they cancel school the day before and there's not a flake on the ground, right?
Right.
So,
Exactly.
What is the time frame for pretty much the start of the project to the finish of the project? Economy driven or?
That would, do you want to have?
Just before we move on from that, Jen and Leanne or John or whoever, if it's going to be banked, as you say, like, how does the decision get made as to whether it's going to get, constructed or not?
In the event that the Board of Ed has made a determination that the buses will not enter this project, it will be put into place. If the buses are coming in, there's no need for those pads to be.
And who's going to be the responsible
$500
entity
I
to,
would say, you're gonna have an HOA, right, Leanne?
there's going to be
Yes,
several.
there'll be multiple HOAs.
But there's gonna be a global HOA, right, an overall HOA?
Yeah, each of the different housing types has its own homeowners association.
Well, then, what I think is necessary then, if that's going to be the condition, is there needs to be something in the HOA documents that makes that future HOA, because none of them are here, aware of what that responsibility is.
I think that's reasonable, and certainly be willing to do that.
Okay.
Great.
And provide for the pads, if it turns out they're needed.
excellent.
And Mr. Chair, I would just say that, like, showing the location and what have you, I'm comfortable, if you're comfortable with Laura and I, making sure that it's in the appropriate location, should the board act favorably as a resolution compliance item.
Everybody fine with that? Yeah.
Yep.
Works for me. Good, thanks, John. Thanks, John.
That sounds very reasonable.
Great.
Okay. So, the other waiver is kind of perfunctory because this is where your ordinance conflicts with RSIS in terms of parking space size, and so, Leanne, would you just sum that up?
Right, so the ordinance requires 19-foot stalls, and the RSIS requires 18-foot stalls, so our spaces are RSIS compliant, and they're 9 by 18, and our aisle widths are 24 feet as per the RSIS, and this is just in the parking areas for the multifamily stacked and for the apartments.
The
So,
affordable units.
I don't know if we actually need a waiver or if it's just an ordinance conflict.
I would, the way that we've handled it in the past is to say that there is an ordinance conflict. We determine that the lesser width prevails. However, in the event, it is somehow determined that relief is necessary, that it's granted. That way, it's covered on both ends.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
good. So, Leanne, I think we've covered everything from here except one last question. You have some outstanding reviews. Are you in a position to advise the board that all of those conditions can be satisfied?
So the first letter I have is from Leanna Savakian's office, from Jennifer Beam. So on page, I think starting on page 4, item 2A, we will comply. Most of the heights are on the plan now for the retaining walls.
They'll all be
That's fine.
ordinance
Okay.
compliant, right?
The signage, we provided testimony supporting that. The buffers,
So Leanne, if I
Yes.
could just cut to it, like, we don't typically walk through our letters.
Okay.
We typically bring it
You
up.
tell me.
I spoke to Shari, she's confident that the buffers are compliant, we discussed the lighting, the parking. The one thing I will say is can you just testify very briefly on the rec requirements?
Oh, yeah, you weren't here, but I will be
I'm
testifying
sorry,
for you.
I came in late, so.
You want me to, I can testify again, real quick. So the,
If you testified already, then I'm
Okay.
good. I totally missed it.
okay.
I
And
don't think,
the screening, I think I should touch on the screening, C2, requires mechanical equipment at the ground or on the roof or around the buildings to be visually screened. So I think are you thinking about like transformers and things that are out in front of the buildings?
or
Or
if
you
you
also?
have any kind of generators or anything
Right.
like that.
So we would provide like at-grade screening, but just know that for the transformers and things, we have to be offset so much and we have to have one side of access, but we could put low shrubbery around them to
I
screen
would
them.
say whatever you have out there, as long as Shari is
Okay.
satisfied with what the landscaping screening is, we're.
So we will comply with that, your
We're
item
good with
C2.
that. Yeah.
And the D, we did sidewalks.
I don't have anything else on my letter.
Thanks, Jen. The Councilwoman has just a quick question.
I have a question about the water tower.
Yeah.
How that came to be. Did New Jersey American Water purchase the land from you guys?
In our discussions with New Jersey American, they wanted this site pretty seriously because they they had overall water pressure weakness in the Howell system. The elevation of this tank gives them the natural pressure, downward pressure from the water throughout the system. And I'm not a water engineer, but apparently you get a lot of mileage out of the height and the pressure. And when we were having this discussion, the New Jersey American engineer said, I don't know what you're questioning, John, this is just like the Romans did. We put the water in and make sure there's enough water and high enough, we can even have a fountain if we wanted. But the idea was that they felt that this was the most expedient way for them in order to provide the pressure throughout the system, and that, well, you can't say that I can't say where the pressure is going to move substantially. The engineers were satisfied that it's going to move the entire system to a higher level of performance where it's now weak.
It'll be a separate parcel. It's shown as a separate lot, a separate parcel.
It's a separate parcel that is, well, it was shown on the
I
plan.
saw it,
You see
right.
where that is. That is going to be owned by New Jersey American. It'll be conveyed to them, and it'll be part of their operation as they maintain the overall Howell Township water system for their customers.
What's the height to the top of the water tower?
The tower itself is 100 feet high. The base elevation is 183. And how it came about is when we do will serve letters for all the utilities, and once they got the will serve letter, like, that we needed water, they're like, wait a second, we need you. So it was a symbiotic relationship there.
Well, my concern, and I guess we could take it up with the township, is that they're putting a lot of 5G cells onto water towers, and the fact that it's right there in the neighborhood would not be.
Is that a permitted use, Jen, on top of water towers?
Yeah, well, I don't know if
Well,
it is.
so the way that the cellular ordinance states is that we look for like co-locations on existing structures prior to like new towers. I would say in this particular instance, maybe if the board is concerned about that, given the location, a condition of this particular approval that, I mean, I would defer to Ron, right? That includes this water tower, we could say, this is not an appropriate co-location location.
Well, also, this particular site basically has its own zoning because it's an affordable housing site. So while there may be a general tower co-location ordinance, the zoning for this particular site did not envision that, correct?
Yes.
So we can place that in the resolution, say it's our interpretation of the ordinance that a tower is not permitted, or the cellular apparatus is not permitted.
Thank you.
Even if it's conveyed to New Jersey American Water?
It's still within that zone.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, it's part of the site.
Yep.
And while they're not the applicant, this is between the applicant and the water company. The fact that it's part of the law of the land, if you will, would be controlling.
And you spoke a little bit to it, and I don't know if you can speak more. You know, it's not the overall system improvements. It's not just for the development. Do you know how far in Howell it kind of
So I
improves?
did ask that question, because I don't work for New Jersey American Water, and I did receive a response back from our contact at New Jersey American Water, and they basically said the entire gradient under elevation 280, which is all of Howell Township. That was the email response I received, that this tower would be able to, yeah, the pressure.
That it would have pressure effects across the town.
All have
I don't know
better
if-
showers here.
I don't know
Well, it's
specifically, I don't
fire
want to provide
protection,
the board with hearsay, but they did share with us that there were pressure issues throughout the township. That's about the extent of what I know.
So can you, I don't think we have that in our record. Can you just submit that when you have a chance?
I could submit it tonight if you would
Oh,
like.
okay, great.
It's an email, is that okay if I hand it to you?
Yeah.
Okay,
It is what it is.
I'm looking for it, but, anyway, do you want to go, Laura's letter? Laura, I don't want to go through the whole thing.
Yeah, so similarly, Leanne,
Here,
the body of our
right here.
letter,
You have it, Ron. Here it
you
is.
addressed directly. Discussion items remain mainly for planner and traffic. And the items in our technical engineering review, do you agree to comply with those in totality?
Yes.
So nothing further from our review letter for the engineer at this time?
I gave it to him.
Leanne, if I may, Mr. Chairman, Leanne, is this the memo that you were referring to?
Yes.
Sent to you from Chad M. McKendra on January 17th of
Yes,
2024.
that's correct.
I'm going to ask Mr. Chairman that this be marked as our next exhibit.
Well, the next one
Deliver that
is,
copy right now to,
we're going to mark that email as A34,
This one?
the one that Leanne just gave. And what is it that you have, John?
portion of this email.
Okay. This is a different email.
Yes.
All right, we'll mark this as A35.
Hey, Eileen, a little housekeeping question. Is like the air conditioning on in here?
Thank you.
I'm feeling just cold.
It's freezing.
The ladies have hand warmers
Cold
over here.
outside. It's always
I think I'm done.
we wear our coats during that.
From you, or you want something else?
No, you good? Are you good?
You want an overall? Do you have any reason to think that you can't
No, I don't
comply?
think I need to send
I don't think
those.
that's changed.
My kids will end up
But
with
I'm
2
gonna
weeks.
contact Amy. I'm gonna tell Amy that right now.
Kinda like
I'm
how we
playing
play.
like two corners. Okay.
But go ahead, you know,
Okay.
reinforce
Do
it.
you want me to leave these plants here?
Yeah, we're good.
Just go tomorrow, so I'm
It's nice.
Mr. Chairman, basically, that's our engineering and planning design testimony. It was intended to address all of the comments that were raised by your consultants, and I think we've done that. It was intended to explain to the board the extent of the project and how it all integrates together. And the final question I'm going to ask Ms. Hoffman is, Leanne, does this now comply with the requirements of our agreement with Howell Township in terms of providing affordable housing at this site?
Yes.
So, with that, Mr. Chairman, I have no other direct questions for Ms. Hoffman.
Thank you. Does anybody from the board have any engineering questions? Ron, how do you want to just do it by engineer, open it to the public, or do you want to do it?
Well, I think Mr. Junko was requesting that for tonight so that each witness
Oh,
could sort
understood.
of complete their time here. So I think we can open it to the public.
Okay, yeah, this will be for questions only of the engineer to the public.
I always get them.
Okay, we just need you to state and spell your name and give us your address.
Lisa Dillon, 214 Turbeck.
Can you spell your name for us, ma'am?
Lisa Dillon, sorry. I have a quick
Can
question.
you spell your last name for us?
Dillon,
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, and what was your address?
214. I'm just really curious. I never get notifications about this project. And looking on the exhibit, my name and address is on here. So I'd like to know why.
You're within 200 feet?
Yep, my name is on this.
Well, let's let the applicant answer. Do you know your lot and block number?
Yep, 144, 158.
Okay, Mr. Junko, can you see if that's within the 200-foot
I'm
radius?
looking at the list right now, Mr. Kuchera.
I have the documentation from the tax assessor to the attorneys.
Can you give me that, your lot and block one more time, please?
144, 158.
153?
144.
Yeah, that was block.
158.
158.
I see it on the list here. You are Lisa?
Yeah.
So it's on this list here on our plan.
No,
I don't have 158.
But we have.
Wasn't on the certified list.
Never received certified, regular mail, not one piece of
Well,
mail.
let's just
I
let
have-
them
you know,
look through their records.
I have a certified list, and that property is not on it.
I have a list too. Certified,
200-foot list. 144,
keep going, there's 3
158.
pages.
Yep, right there. 157.
Yep, at the 3rd page.
That way, and it's more than 200 that way. It's outside the 200-foot limit.
Mr. Junko, can I just see the list that you got from the tax assessor?
I have one too.
Yeah, because a portion of 157 is within, but her
Or
lot
if you
is
want to
not
look
within.
at it on the screen. This is her lot.
Well, ma'am, what list do you have, ma'am?
I pulled it from the application.
Okay, we're going to have to mark this as an exhibit.
No, well, make a copy. I had a hard time finding that on the exhibit.
Well, if you want it to be part of the record, then we have to mark it as an exhibit.
Can you scan it in?
We don't have that ability tonight.
So
Just check to see.
well, I can't check anything unless you're going to allow me to
guess so,
mark this
but
as an
I-
exhibit. So we'll call this P1.
I would like to take a picture.
You can scan it on your phone.
And then, can you just show me where you're,
Because we get a 200-foot list, so it's not in great order, though. That's why I'm wondering if.
he's on this list. John, where's the, what's the date that you received the list that's, okay.
The list that was used was August 8th, and she's not on that list. And if you look at the tax map, she's not with it.
This was January 6, 2023.
So it's too old, we can't rely on it.
So hold on. I will determine and make a recommendation of what we can rely on.
It is August 8th, Laura, it's part of this.
All right, so, well, why don't you take pictures with this with your phone so we can keep it?
And my question would be, is why is this on the application that's in the...
Well, look, why don't you take the picture, because we got to get all this on tape, so. Well, no.
Not anymore, it's all
because just from
different
a
next
legal
year.
standpoint, this is a new
Yeah.
list on the one she has.
Locust,
That's the one
right?
to go
On
by.
Locust, K through 5 goes to Ramtown. That is insane. There's a K through 5.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Sorry about that.
So, the list that Ms. Dillon has is a list dated January 6, 2023.
Okay.
I don't know, John, I haven't looked through all the block and lots, but did the block and lots change?
I don't know. outside of the line if you look at it.
No, I'm just trying to understand the difference between the two. 143.
It's the lot is 153? Is it
158, it's a
158?
triangular lot.
Got
So
it.
essentially, Mr. Chair, Ms. Dillon is correct. She was listed as within 200 feet on the list that was requested in January 6, 2023. However, the most recent list, which is August 8th, 2023, she's not on the list. That's the most recent list, and the applicant has the right to rely on that list. And there's a lot of lots and blocks. I don't know if the difference is maybe there was a different number, the project may have changed a little bit, and not all the lots and block, 200-foot radius was on there. But they're entitled to rely upon the most recent list.
Okay.
Looking at the exhibit that's up on the board,
John, you need a mic.
dash line.
Got it, yeah.
Yep.
You need the,
Go ahead.
Yeah, you certainly can. Absolutely.
So how come,
Well,
Wait, just go up to the microphone.
ma'am.
so back in January, I was never received any notification from January to August.
They only are required to notice you when they make the actual application.
Yeah.
They're not required to notice you when the project is like in its development stage. They made the application probably October-ish. Eileen, when did the application come in?
Well, it's not when the application comes in, it's when they have the, it's when they
My
have the.
neighbors have been getting notices
It's-
for years.
It's when they have the public hearing. So the notices that went out, and at least 10 days prior to the public hearing that they had, and December was your first night, right, Mr. Junko?
Yes.
Yeah, so it would have gone out at least 10 days prior to that December meeting. That's the only notice from our standpoint that's relevant for us to consider.
It just seems odd that the acreage of this project was smaller. Like, it doesn't make sense how I was,
I don't know, but they got it from the tax assessor.
exactly.
So the law is that they are entitled to rely upon what the tax assessor gives them. So I don't know what the,
How do I get that letter from August 8th? Where would I see that online? Anywhere?
well, it's part of the record. Eileen,
But when I researched online for this application, I saw that January 2023 listing. So I'm looking for an updated listing, then it wasn't provided correctly on their website.
it's not, it just comes in with their,
Okay, but originally, the January 23rd one was online.
Mr. Junko,
I didn't hear that, I'm sorry.
all right, can you just show Ms. Dillon the 200-foot radius list that you received, and just to show to her that she's not on there?
Well, the only one I have is the one that we relied on for purposes of...
Mr. Junko, I'm saying, show her the list so she can see she's not on there.
I should have, I forgot to put my helpers in.
It's great. Can you take a picture?
Yes.
That's on the website.
Under which exhibit?
It's under the first document distribution sheet, and it's certified property owners list.
Did you see the January list there?
I do,
also?
and there's multiple document distribution sheets, so you just have to check them.
That comes from, not from him though, that comes from the tax assessor, and I'm not required to put that out there. I just saved it so I have it. Go back to document distribution one, you see.
Thank you.
Well, these are the rest of the list. This is the letter.
Well, yeah, I know, but I have that list from that, but, okay. Thank you.
All right. Is there anything else from the public? Seeing none, close the public portion. I guess we'll move on to your next witness.
Well, yes, I'd like to call Scott Kennel, our traffic
Sure.
consultant.
Okay, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state and spell your name for the record.
Scott Kennel, Kennel, with McDonough and Ray Associates, located in Manasquan.
Mr. Chairman, I'm offering that Mr. Kennel is...
Scott's good, yep.
Thank you, thank you.
Scott, would you give the board a summary analysis, if you will, of the interior road system and its serviceability, and likewise, the access from Casino and West Farm?
Yes, I will testify to the report prepared by my office dated November 20, 2023, that was submitted as part of the application. As part of our data collection, as I've testified previously in other applications, we do an extensive data collection program, inventory existing roadway systems, the types of intersections, signalized, unsignalized, and we conducted traffic counts at 5 different locations in February, March, and April of 2023 from 7 to 9:30 a.m. and 3:30 to 6 p.m. to inventory the peak traffic conditions. We also installed automatic traffic recording devices on Casino Drive and on West Farms Road, adjacent to the subject property, to record daily and hourly traffic volumes for weekdays and Saturday and Sundays. Just for the board's benefit, as far as Casino Drive, the two-way traffic volumes during the peak hours are approximately 200 vehicles. West Farms Road is approximately 225 during the morning and 300 in the afternoon. So they serve as local collector roadways with moderate traffic volumes. Reviewing the plans prepared by the site engineer, we utilized the data to estimate traffic to be generated by the development. We consulted the Institute of Transportation Engineers trip generation manual and determined, based on the unit mix, housing types, that the site during the morning peak hour would generate approximately 275 trips, and in the afternoon, approximately 350 trips. Then it's necessary to assign the site traffic to the area roadway network, and we reviewed existing traffic patterns, the area roadway network, employment opportunities, shopping opportunities, and determined that approximately from this development, 70% of the traffic would be oriented to and from the west towards Route 9, and then the balance of the traffic would be 30% be oriented to the east, and a small amount to some of the local roads to the south. Taking all that into consideration, we extrapolated the base traffic volumes to a design year of 2033. We utilized the NJDOT traffic growth data to establish the growth rate to be applied to the base traffic volumes. We also included within our analysis a recently approved housing development on Sunnyside Road and Four Plains in our background traffic. And in evaluating the site access points, Casino Drive, which will have Whaler Way as the access, we determined that that access would operate at level service B. As you've heard testimony before, we rate an intersection from A to F. This is operating level service B, well within acceptable ranges. As far as Cherry Stone Way with West Farms Road, that intersection as well will operate at level service B upon full build-out for both the morning and afternoon peak hours. We studied a number of other intersections to the east and to the west, and all of them would operate at the same level of service from a no-build to build condition, representing a minimal impact on operating traffic conditions. As far as the site plan is concerned, or the subdivision, we reviewed the internal roadway network, the access, and determined that the roadway design for this development is compliant with the residential site improvement standards relative to horizontal roadway geometry, and having 2 points of access to this site complies with the accessibility standards set forth in the residential site improvement standards. The last thing I'll touch on is as far as parking. Parking is compliant and exceeds the recommended standards for the various housing types within the development. So from a residential site improvement standard viewpoint, this plan is compliant from accessibility, road design, and parking. And that's basically a quick synopsis of our analysis.
Scott, do you find the road design and layout safe?
Based on yes, I mean, the design as proposed, which basically has a north-south spine road that has a width of 30 feet, I think is appropriate, as well as the other smaller internal neighborhoods created and accessibility to those neighborhoods within the overall development.
And are you did you have a chance to review the parking that's provided and determine it to be adequate?
Yes, and according to reviewing the plans prepared by Hammer, the parking for the apartments, the stacked townhomes, as well as the townhomes themselves meet and exceed the RSIS standards.
Mr. Chairman, I have no other direct questions for Mr. Kennel concerning the traffic plan. I would just add, this plan is substantially, very close to exactly what was laid out in the original discussions between applicant and the municipality.
Anybody? Laura, Jen, Sherry?
So, Mr. Kennel, we have a couple traffic-related comments in our technical engineering review, mainly dealing with maneuverability and circulation. Have you had the opportunity to review those?
Which comment specifically?
It was dealing with the fire truck, and I'm assuming, obviously, if the fire truck can circulate, we had questioned the need to provide garbage truck, delivery truck, but just left turns in and out of Casino Drive and West Farms Road.
Yeah, my initial review of that, in my opinion, they're appropriate. The geometry at those access points are consistent, again, with what's recommended by RSIS. And the truck circulation plan provided considered a fire vehicle, which is going to be larger than an SU-30 or a refuse vehicle, and is generally consistent with the school bus. So based on my general review of the plan, I'm generally satisfied with the design.
And then just sight distance at both intersections, specifically Casino and West Farms Road?
Yes, as far as Casino, we have more than adequate sight distance that exceed the recommended standards. As far as West Farms Road, there were some questions raised because there's a vertical curve on West Farms Road just to the east of the site access, but based on a sight distance analysis, we meet and exceed the recommended sight distance requirements.
Mr. Chairman, that was all I had for this witness.
Okay. There was a comment from the Environmental Commission that the traffic study stated that West Farms Road and Fort Plains Road west of Route 9 has a plan for a traffic signal. Do you know when that's going to be installed?
I don't have a time frame on that.
Okay.
I'm aware of that being a candidate for a traffic signal for a number of years with all the work we do here, but I don't know what the timing is on that.
Got it. Anything?
I don't have any questions, but to that traffic signal question, it came up when we heard FP Howell. It's come up a number of times. I don't know when the town's going to pull the trigger on that.
Just keep throwing it out there.
Yeah.
All right. Does anybody from the public have any questions? for traffic engineer only? Seeing none, close the public portion.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like, my final witness would be Christine Cofone, our planner.
Okay.
I think this will be very short. Our clients worked hard to make the plan compliant with the agreements.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please state and spell your name for the record.
Hi, good evening. For the record, it's Christine Nazzaro, Nazzaro, Cofone, Cofone. Business address is 125 Half Mile Road, Suite 200, Red Bank, New Jersey, 07701. Testifying this evening as a licensed professional planner. I've been testifying as such in the state of New Jersey for about 28 years now, qualified here in Howell, and about 450.
Mr. Chairman, would you accept?
Yes.
Thank you.
Christine, could you just generally describe your analysis of compliance of this application with the ordinances and with the agreements to create the zone and this obligation to develop the affordable housing?
Yes, so this is what I would consider a more than substantially compliant application. We have no bulk violations. We meet every bulk parameter set forth in the ML14 zone. The ML14 zone has a stated purpose and intent in it, and it reads in that zone that the stated purpose and intent of it was to assist Howell Township in meeting its affordable housing obligation. At a 30% set-aside, I can tell you that that's a pretty substantial set-aside. I'm an affordable housing special master, so I read dozens, if not hundreds, of settlements, and I think that this is substantial. The typical is 15% for a rental project or 20% for sale, so this is a substantial affordable housing settlement that needs very minimal variance relief. So certainly I would say from a planning point of view, it's very compliant. The one variance that we do need was identified by Leanne earlier in the evening, and it is for the sign of the size of our monument signs. And we are proposing them at 12 by 5, and if you had an opportunity to look at the detail, it shows a very attractive base with the E logo for the enclave and the name. So I think the board can grant the variance relief for the size of the sign under the C2 statutory criteria, which is the flexible C, and it finds that if you advance one or more purposes in the land use law, the board can grant the application, and if you find that there's no substantial detriment, right? It doesn't only ask you to hold us to a standard that there's no detriment, just that the benefits outweigh any detriment. So the two purposes of the land use law, and statutorily, we need to advance one to meet our burden of proof. Our criteria I, which talks about creating a desirable visual environment. Again, it's, while we have to count conservatively, you need to count all elements of the sign, but there are decorative components in the base of the sign, which is a brick base, which we've included, and so it's an attractive feature. So I believe criteria I is applicable. Criteria H talks about the free flow of traffic. Leanne, our site engineer, testified extensively about the character of both Casino as well as West Farms Road. So certainly having appropriate signage on those locations that accommodates the posted speed for those roads is appropriate. So that's a positive criteria. Again, I believe criteria I and H are advanced, which leaves us with a burden of proof with respect to the negative criteria. The section of the ordinance that we actually violate is section 2564A, and the way that section reads is that you're allowed to have a sign that advertises a permitted use in the zone or a member of a recognized profession, and it restricts you to 4 square feet. So it was clearly not intended to govern, in my opinion. It was really all-encompassing for residential zones and was trying to include something where somebody might have a home occupation or a registered professional where you could have a 4 square foot sign. This is a 458 unit development on a site that's 236 acres. So I think that the sign that's proposed, the sign is certainly appropriately scaled to the development. So for those reasons, I believe that the board can certainly grant the variance relief requested under the C2 section of the statute, and we certainly meet our burden of proof with respect to the positive and negative criteria.
Could I just ask a quick question, Counselor?
Oh, I didn't.
For the sign, since this site seems to have multiple HOAs and it's part of what will end up being deeded a public road at some point, who maintains that sign?
That will be maintained by the homeowners association that is responsible for that portion of the site.
Got it. Thank you.
So, and I don't know today whether on casino, whether it'll shift to the market rate side. It is not appropriate to assign additional expenses or costs to an affordable component.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
It would be
Thank you.
cost generative.
Christine, I did want you to just address the board. You analyzed this with regard to compliance with the obligations under the Affordable Housing Agreement between Howell Township and our applicant.
I did.
Well, could you report to the board what you found when you looked at it?
This project was, your affordable housing agreement identifies all of the ways in which you intend to meet your constitutionally mandated obligation to provide for affordable housing. So this site by block and lot is specifically referenced in your settlement agreement for 458 units with a 30% set aside. So this is absolutely in compliance with your court settlement agreement.
So I have no other direct questions for our planner. The waivers, I think, were well explained, and I'm not even going to ask her to add her opinion to that. So I have no further questions with Ms. Grifone.
Anybody from the board? Good. Thank you.
So I don't disagree with the testimony regarding compliance with our settlement agreement and our housing plan. I would just ask one thing. I don't take exception to the size of the signs. I think that the site needs to be visible before somebody gets to that roadway. Otherwise, given the nature of those roads with limited shoulder, you're going to have people slamming on their brakes. So that's not a good scenario. I just want you to testify on the record that the signage as proposed and location, I probably should have asked Leanne this, but does not obstruct any site triangle or site distance.
My understanding is that it does not. I think our traffic engineer as well as our site civil engineer have both reviewed the plans, and the signs have been located on the plan to be out of any site triangle.
So long as they're out of the site triangle and don't impede site distance, I take no exception to the relief being requested.
Okay. All righty. Once again, open it to the public for any questions for the planner. Seeing none?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Junko, my understanding is you have one more witness, your architect, who's not here tonight.
We don't have, the architect is not here tonight, but the architectural plans have all been submitted, and they require no variances, and I don't...
Well, I guess my question to you is, do you want to put up architectural testimony or not?
I want to rely on the exhibits that were submitted.
Well,
I'm not following what you want.
I'm asking what you want. This is your application, so if you're asking for a decision tonight, then you're not putting up any architectural.
I am asking the board to consider the application this evening. I think we presented and addressed all the issues that were addressed through your consultants, and the application basically seeks no variances. The waivers are relatively insignificant. If you want to see the architecture, I would have to bring Mr. Regazzoni when he can make it here.
So unlike every other application that we have where I have architectural concerns, the applicant has submitted documentation. It does not require relief from our ordinance for architecture. So typically we see this more of a site plan application, industrial building and what have you. As long as you can stipulate on the record that you'll comply with our lookalike ordinance, I don't have any issues associated with the architecture moving forward.
I can stipulate that, and further...
Before you respond to that, see if you respond to this one as well. The only thing that I would stipulate on is any louvers or venting that's out the side of the building, that those are color matched to the exterior. And if there is an opportunity to combine, instead of, let's say you have kitchen exhaust, bathroom exhaust, and dryer exhaust, that there is my understanding that there's devices available on the market that you can combine those into a common outlet. So there's not 3 outlets coming out every single apartment. So color matched and something like that is really the only thing that I would recommend be put on the record and put in the resolution.
I think that if you propose those as conditions, our application would certainly accept it and comply with it.
Okay, thank you.
And you will comply with the lookalike ordinance?
Yes.
So I don't take exception to you guys moving forward without architectural testimony.
Okay.
So with that, Mr. Chairman, I am going to ask the board to consider this application, and I'm sure you'll be surprised when I ask you to consider it favorably, because the reason I'm here is to gain this approval for my clients. But we're basically in compliance with not only the ordinances, but the agreement between the township and our applicant, and it does provide this substantial affordable housing. And I'm sure you've heard a dozen times about the implication of that, and that fact that that is a significant factor that the courts expect the boards and the townships to comply with. And here, I've been involved with this project from the very beginning with the town, and quite frankly, there were loads of meetings over laying it out properly and coming to the design. And once those designs were settled, I think everything came together very well in this plan. It's very spread out for an affordable project, and it's only because of the ability to concentrate the 5 sections, if you will, in each category, that this large expanse of land was able to be used this way, and basically 128 unaffected acres on this site. So I'm going to request the board to consider that we're in compliance with the ordinance, we're in compliance with the agreement. The project meets your affordable housing requirements, in fact exceeds the standard of 15% or 20% to go to 30%. And I'm going to ask the board to approve it because our client is prepared to get the remaining approvals are in process already. We expect the construction can pursue soon, within maybe a year, and we'd like to be able to get that underway.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Chair, we just need to open it back up to the public for any testimony now, any comments.
This is open to testimony from anybody from the public, which come running forward. All right, we'll close that again. So, all right, that's it.
I would like you to make a motion to approve the application.
Thanks, John. All right, that being said, so I will entertain a motion. I guess that goes with all stipulations discussed this evening for case number SP 1117, DR Horton, Inc., NJ, Howell Ridge.
That includes, I guess.
All stipulations discussed.
Do you guys want to, Ron, do you just want to summarize what the variances and so forth that were agreed to, or
The only
need?
variance is the signage.
Yeah, well, the sidewalk.
That's a waiver.
It's
A
waiver.
waiver, okay, waiver. And then the color matching of stuff and the combining of exhausts, is that really the 4 items?
Well, they also have to place the language we discussed in the HOA documents.
And I guess something about the 5G, or it's our understanding that the ordinance.
Yeah,
Ordinance may not
also
allow-
the prohibition on putting the telecommunications apparatus on top of the water tank.
And then with the,
The light intensity waiver, the curb ramp spacing waiver, the porous asphalt pavement waiver, the frontage waiver.
yeah, all that.
I'm just
but-
listing them all
Yeah,
out because
and
I know that's what
the,
we were trying to get them
Yep.
all out. Yeah.
Just want to make sure we didn't miss
Just in
any.
summation.
if the buses can't get in, the agreed to construction
Right,
of,
and the location of those pads in the event that
Yep.
this is one.
Okay,
all right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the
You're gonna make a
application.
I'll second.
So I said Mr. Tannenhouse and Mr. Cristiano for the second.
Okay, Mr. Cristiano?
Yes.
Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
Mr. Tannenhouse?
Yes.
Mr. Rebel?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Pike?
Yes.
Mr. Carbonic?
Yes.
And Chairman Husser.
Yes,
Motion carries, application is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. All right, master plan update?
No update.
No update. Mr. Cucchiaro, any reason for executive session?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.